But are y'all following me so far? You hear the story of Joseph and how his brothers sold him into slavery. And even through that, he came up out of the pit and was sold into slavery, went down to Egypt, and had great responsibility. And then he avoided temptation. But he avoided temptation in 5 different ways that I've outlined here. First one, he took responsibility for it. Verse 9. He is not greater, Joseph said, he is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness? How could I do this great wickedness? How many men in the same exact circumstance could have come up with a whole lot of excuses to sin in that moment? Well, she's my boss's wife. I got to do what she says. You know, oh, she's so beautiful. She caught me in a weak moment. You know, there's 100 excuses Joseph could have sinned, and he didn't, because he trusted in one thing. He trusted in God, and he avoided the temptation. And the number 2 thing, the first thing, he took responsibility for it. He took his own responsibility. He didn't say, I'm too weak, I can't avoid it. He took responsibility. Second thing was, he recognized it as sin. You know, he knew the Word of God. Joseph knew the Word of God, and as soon as she tempted him with that, adultery, he recognized it as sin. He knew it was sin, and he recognized it. Verse 9 says, it would have been wrong to take his wife there. And the third thing he did, and all of us have to have this focus first, before among anyone else, respond to God. Joseph didn't say, I would sin against your husband. He said in verse 9, how then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God? How important is that? Especially when you're tempted to sin against the enemy. You're tempted to take something from somebody you think deserves getting it taken from, getting robbed. No, you're not sinning against that person nearly as much as you're sinning against God. That's number 3. And another very important thing Joseph did. Verse 10. And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not consent to lie beside her or be with her. Number 4, he refused to be present. He refused to be present in the area of the temptation any longer. He recognized it. He recognized what the enemy was trying to do. And he refused to be present. Verse 10. And he didn't just refuse to be present. He didn't just refuse to, well, I'll finish out my day here and avoid the temptation, and then I just won't show up to work tomorrow. That's not what he did. Verse 12 says he ran. He ran from the temptation. He knew that he had strong human nature within him, and he could only avoid the temptation so long, so he knew he had to run from it. Not just flee it, but run. Verse 12, she caught hold of his garment, saying, lie with me. But he left his garment in his hand, and he fled and ran outside. And even a man of God, when he avoids temptation, he could be lied about to. Like Joseph here, Potiphar's wife lied and totally twisted the story. And we see that he was imprisoned again. He is imprisoned for doing right. And even though he did right, he was imprisoned. But God rescued him from that even. He rescued him from the imprisonment, and he returned to even greater power, greater responsibility than he had before.